So 364, today we're talking about some standouts in yesterday's match between Chicago and Boston. Saw Fraser Minton get the OT winner in that game. It was a very physical game, very intense game, very back and forth game. There wasn't really a distinct standout in terms of both sides because both sides, they had occasions where they were sloppy. They were making bad neutral zone decisions and it cost them in transition. And I mean, luckily the defense were able to bail them out at both ends. It usually led to a lot of odd man rushes, a lot of middle lane drives, and we saw it for both teams. It wasn't one team in particular. I think if you're looking at who had the edge off the rush, you could argue by a little bit with Chicago, just because of the way they were creating on entries, the way they were able to slip passes through, and they had a strong start to the game. Unfortunately, in the third period was when Boston was able to take control a little bit more in zone offensively. In terms of neutral zone play, I thought Chicago was on top of it for the most part. And a lot of it has to do, I believe, with the chemistry of the lines. The only change that they made, and the only major change was they moved Brian Ganano down and they put Golden Dot on the first line. So someone to match the speed and tenacity of Connor Bedard a little bit more. And Golden Dot seemed to play that role really well because the other edge he had to his game, maybe this is the edge that he had over Brian Donovan, was that he could take a hit and make a play. We saw it on one of the goals where he was behind the net. He was either F1 or F2 into the zone. I forget which one, but he's behind the net. He takes a hit, a big hit from Nikita Zordorov, stays on his feet because he's 6'4", obviously. Then he makes the play along the wall. I believe it was a rim play over to Andre Burakovsky on the strong side wall. And Burakovsky is off the wall, makes the seam pass to the weak side over to Bedard, and Bedard's able to one time it in the back of the net. So we saw a few set plays like that, and but I don't know if it was necessarily set to have Colton Dock be able to make that rim play, take a hit to make that play, and just be able to get it over to Bedard. So that was something that was really creative and I thought was noticeable. Is he a fit, and is he someone that sticks on the top line with Burakovsky and Bedard? I don't know, but given the fact that he was able to play that role, and he was able to play that winger role really well, and also bring a touch of physicality, he looked great. I was really impressed with this game. I've been really impressed with this game really the whole preseason. I thought he's been a major standout and has deserved to make the team, be on a be on the team regularly. He looks more filled out. He looks physical. He plays with more mean streak. And in order for him to be able to develop an edge in the league, I feel like he has to have that streak factor because he's not necessarily an uber talented offensive player and highly talented offensive player like his brother was coming up, Kirby, Montreal. And it's a different scenario. He was a second round pick. He wasn't as highly touted offensively. He was still point per game junior as a centerman, but not as highly touted, not as cerebrally skilled as his brother was. So the mean streak factor is definitely an edge to his game. It gives him a little bit of a unique separation factor compared to most guys, and he's got to use that consistently because it's an element the Hawks don't really have as much of. And he's able to weaponize that, and they could become a better team of the wing. And just in terms of physical play and size and having that factor there. And then you look at Boston standouts. I mean, Victor Arvidsson was noticeable. I think he's always noticeable against the Hawks for some reason. He always has that X factor against Chicago. But some other guys who were noticeable were, of course, David Pastrnak. Elias Lindholm's been on a hot streak to start the season. He's looked like the Calgary version of himself. And hopefully he gets back up to form because they really need him to get into form. And if he can do that, you're looking at a guy who can very reliably be on the line as the center with David Pastrnak. But Casey Middlestat was noticeable. Fraserman, obviously, like I mentioned, he had the OT winner. And I thought outside of that, some of their bottom six element guys and bottom element guys on their defensive core, Mikey Easemont was noticeable. Tanner Jeannot had a goal in front of the net, stopped at the net front. He was able to get a rebound and jam that home. Thought Andrew Peak was noticeable here and there. Henry Yokihari, who showed some flair, some physicality. Marat Husnadinov was noticeable in terms of speed, driving play up the wing, and being able to track back defensively as more of an F1, F2. Got that speed and that straight line speed to be able to recover instantly. So he got leverage there. Mark Kastelich has been a seamless fit ever since joining Boston. So Sean Corrali was another guy who's noticeable physically. So a lot of their bottom six was standing out in that sense. And obviously they need the top six to produce and beat the top guys, especially in a season, the first full season in a long time without Brad Marchand. And you're gonna have to rely upon Pasternak and Elias Lindholm and Casey Middlestat a little bit more. And that's just the reality. So I mean, outside of that, Boston played a good game. They played a very physical game. I thought this was a pretty even matchup on all sides. It's just how both teams competed, how they played in transition and off the rush, and how they were able to create offensively. So both teams were noticeable, but obviously Boston gets the better edge of it in overtime with that odd man rush leading to Fraser Minton's goal.